Welcome back to the Geriatric Mama podcast. If you're on YouTube, you're watching me fix my necklace. And if you're not on YouTube, why aren't you on YouTube? Come on over. No, it's no big deal. If you're listening to me via audio, hello. I have a green shirt on and some silver hoops, and I look amazing. Yes. I'm just messing with you. Come on in. Welcome back to the Geriatric Mama podcast. I am your host, Dr. Nefertiti Pointer. I can't thank you enough for your calls and your emails and your comments regarding the very first episode of the Geriatric Mom podcast. I have been thinking about doing a podcast for a while. I've actually done some YouTube work several years ago, but when I got quiet and was listening to God's direction, because I'm never moving on my own accord. I've tried to live that life and it doesn't work. Right now in the year 2023, parents, we have to show up in a way we have never showed up before. It has always taken a village to raise children, but we have to put an emphasis on the health of the village. Parents, we have to do our part. And I think there feels to me to be a greater sense of urgency. If I just take the school system, for example, we're going to have to show up differently this year. Yeah, you may be PTA. Yes, you donate stuff to birthdays and you buy great teacher gifts, but I'm just thinking we're going to have to do more. We're going to have to do more. I found myself saying this week, our children did not ask to come here. And it's almost like I like to think of life as this may sound silly, but this is how I think about some things. Parenting is like a party, right? I know it don't feel like a party. I know, but parenting is like a party and our children are our invited guests. We cannot not show up for them. We invited them to this party. So we now must show up for them. And so, again, thank you for everything you said and your comments and your well wishes on our debut podcast. I know, I heard you. You said Madison needs a YouTube channel of her own. Don't tell her that, please. Please don't tell her that. But I'm so glad to have you back again for another few minutes. This time that we are together, I want to talk about something that is going to again be a string that goes through all of my future episodes. So I thought we would get it out the way right now. And that is maintaining your wellness. We're going to have some amazing topics coming up on the podcast. I am excited about inviting others to talk along with me. But one of the things I'm always going to say is that we can't do this parenting thing empty. We can't do this parenting thing if we're not being a little selfish. And hello to the men out there. I know my podcast is called the Geriatric Mom Podcast, and I heard a few people saying, Nefertiti, it's not just for moms. I know, I get it. But mamas are my friends, and that's who I talk to. And so if you're a fella and you're listening, hey, but this is the Geriatric Mom Podcast, and I talk to mamas. But again, everybody's welcome. I talk to aunties, uncles, grandmas, grandpapas. I talk to everybody. But again, the title is the Geriatric Mom Podcast because this girl is the geriatric mom. But all right, focus. Get back to the task at hand. Today on the podcast, I want to introduce you to 6 areas of self-care. And again, the term self-care can often be thought of as like a day at the spa, a massage, retail therapy. All of those things are okay. All of those definitions of self-care are okay. I've learned to think of self-care as anything that I do with intention to take care of my mind, my body, or my spirit. Did you catch that definition? For me, self-care is anything I do with intention to care for my mind, my body, or my spirit. And again, the key word is intentionality. Yes, you're doing some things, but if those things are being done in a more haphazard way, after today's podcast, I would like you just to be more conscientious about making them intentional in your everyday practices. And so if you Google the types of self-care, you will see lists. There's a list of 12 ideas, 6 ideas, 8 ideas. Oh boy, it goes on and on and on. Today, as I talk to those of us who are parents, I want to give you 6 areas of your self-care that you might want to prioritize. The first area is physical health. Now, I know it goes without saying that we have to take care of the vessel that God has given us as a body. If you're listening to me today as a new mom, your body has just gone through some amazing things. Can you just sit right now and think about the fact that you just brought a whole human into this world? And can we talk about where the human came from? Ooh, wee! That's a conversation podcast on its own, right? Whether it came through that one spot or that other spot, either way, a human was extracted from your body. Your physical body is so important. And now that the baby is on the other side of the womb, you're going to have to make time for sleeping and eating and moving your body safely. Again, if you're listening to me today as a new mom, as you nurture your baby's well-being, I want you to be very aware that physical self-care is going to have to be a priority. I remember in my very early stages of having Madison, I really wanted to breastfeed. That was super important to me. And I just was not successful. Again, in some upcoming podcast episodes, we're going to talk about all of that because somebody listening to me, you too had that shared experience and you didn't have anybody to talk with it to it about. We're going to do it here. I was struggling so much, I sought out a lactation specialist. Again, I did all the things at the hospital, but when it was time, when I wasn't finding myself successful, I sought out a lactation specialist. And she gave me a really big, it was a unit that she gave me. It was huge, not like the typical machine we use for breast milk, but this thing was huge. And I sat there and I hooked it up, and that thing was loud. And nothing happened. Nothing happened, or I'll say very minimal happened. And then I went back to Madison's pediatrician at the time, she was so great. I'm telling you, we're going to talk about this on the podcast too. Just the importance of our doctors, right? Just the importance of feeling like you have a doctor that you feel safe with. And I know there's lots of conversation about things regarding that, but again, I want us to talk about that in the future. I was explaining to Madison's pediatrician how difficult I was finding it to breastfeed, and she said to me in such a calm, gentle manner, Nefertiti, some breast milk is better than no breast milk. And so I kept going. Retrospectively, one of the things I know that I wasn't doing enough of was hydration. And so even today, as we think about physical health, it's not just about going to the gym, although that is super important. You know, I love the way my Apple Watch talks to me when I'm on the roll. I also love the way my Apple Watch talks to me when I'm not doing anything. But when you think about your physical health, your baby is going to need you. And you want to be able to meet the baby right there. And so you want to think about what you're eating, how you're hydrating. And this is another part of physical health that we don't always talk about. Sleep. And I don't mean that little play stuff that some of us are doing. Far too many of us are not sleeping well. We get in the bed after being just what they call it, dog tired. You lay across the bed, you still have your phone in your hand, you still have your clothes on, and now you're asleep. And guess what? That alarm clock is going to go off in just a few hours, and now you have to go back into parenting mode. And so can I impress upon you the importance of a good sleeping routine? And again, you may say, Nefertiti, what in the world? How? What? Listen, we'll talk about that soon. But today I just wanted to give you areas of self-care to think about because it's going to be super important as you continue to listen to the Geriatric Mom podcast. I really believe we can't do any of the stuff we're going to talk about if we're not prioritizing some of what we're talking about today. So first things first, keep in mind your physical health. And again, that includes what you eat, how you move your body, hydration, and sleep as well. The next area I want us to think about is mental and emotional self-care. Mental and emotional self-care. Now, once again, some of these words, even the word mental, like Nefertiti, what are you doing here? You are a person who has thoughts and feelings and emotions. And guess what? Your mental health matters. And so I want you to think about, how are you caring, or how will you care for your mental and emotional health? Let me tell you something. One of the things I learned as a teacher is how important it was to take care of my children's mental and emotional health. You know, when I started teaching, I really wanted my babies to read and to write. I wanted when a student left my class, I wanted to leave a mark on them that let the next teacher know that child was taught by Nefertiti Bruce, right? That's what I wanted. I really did. And I tried, and I think I was successful many, many, many instances. But what I also learned by being an educator is that the best way to get my babies to reading and writing and all those things that the school system wants for them is I had to make sure I was prioritizing their mental health and their emotional health. So what does that look like? It looks like making sure they felt safe to feel. It looked like making sure they felt like they had me as a support system. It looked like making sure they knew that it was okay to say, I'm not okay. I told them in our classroom, we will never suffer in silence. If you need something, I want you to let me know. I also told them sometimes you need a Band-Aid for your heart. You know what I mean when I say that? I used to tell my students, sometimes you have a wound, a boo-boo, that I can't see. You know, when you hurt your arm or your knee or your elbow, I can see those hurts. But sometimes your heart hurts. Sometimes your brain hurts. And sometimes you need a Band-Aid for those things. And you know what a Band-Aid looks like? It looks like getting quiet. It looks like a hug. It looks like blowing bubbles, because sometimes you need a breathing break. It looks like all of those things. What does care for your mental and emotional health look like? We will have an upcoming podcast on how to do it for children and with children. But if you're not prioritizing it for yourself, we cannot do it for our babies. And so the second element of your self-care I want you to think about is your mental and emotional health. The third type of self-care I want you to think about is your social/community health and self-care. Social and community self-care. Listen, you and me, we need other people. We need other people. Listen, I am a textbook introvert, right? I love being with people. I love talking to people, but I love being by myself as much as I love that. I might even love it a little bit more. Listen, during the pandemic, when my babies were home and I was just having to be present 24 hours, there were some days I wanted to go sit on the moon. Please just say, yes, yes, I get it in the comments to let me know that I'm not alone. I wanted to go sit on the moon. I wanted everybody to be fine, but I wanted to go sit on the moon. And there is a part of me that has to honor that as a parent. But when I think about my social and community health, listen, you and I can actually get some strength and energy when you know you're not alone. When you can just talk about stuff. And maybe when we talk, we're not even going to talk about our children. We're going to talk about the latest reality show. It'll give you energy. It will give you energy to go back and be the best parent. Remember, we invited our children to this party called Parenting and Life. We have to show up for them. And showing up sometimes means hanging out with the people who fill you up, so that then you have more energy. And again, you can have a big social community group for your mental health, or it could be a small group. My group is small, and I don't see them often. But when I do, I try to harness that feeling so I can hold on to it. And if the moments don't happen by themselves, create them. And why are you creating them? Because you heard during the Geriatric Mom podcast, the more I give to myself, the better parent I am. That's what it's all about. All right, the fourth area, I love this. I love the way, I've pulled from a number of different things I saw in the research around areas of self-care, and I'm settling on these 6, and I really love this one. And I'm so excited that we have this podcast because we can talk about it. My fourth area of your self-care is lifestyle. Lifestyle self-care. Listen to me. Once you become a parent, we start to think that our lifestyle becomes our child. Like, we got to do this and we got to do this. We got to do this. Like, you're a new mom. Your baby is now going to those maybe and me classes, and you're going to play dates, and then they get older and you got soccer and gymnastics and dance. And then we've got parent teacher. Listen. All of those things are okay. I'm not asking you or encouraging you to take any of those things away. I am saying to you, don't get so overwhelmed by your parenting life that you forget to think about what do I want my lifestyle to look like? Do I want to work a 9 to 5 and have to call on childcare for the day? Do I want to work in the PM and maybe be home with my child during the day? Do you want to, when you start having babies, do I want to make sure I live close to family so that I can make sure I have a village? Listen, again, we have to start thinking about this, because if you want it, you're going to have to work toward it. But when you start parenting, sometimes you stop dreaming. Now, when you start to think about your lifestyle, one of the first things you have to do is really think about where you are. Just be really honest about where you are. And then start to think about, what do I want my days to look like? Every year for the past 5 years, I have put on my vision board that I do yearly, I want flexibility. I put that on every vision board. I want flexibility. Coming out of the classroom where you have very little flexibility, those of you who are listening to me and you have a shift where, you have a job where you don't have the flexibility, trying to get to our children during the day, trying to respond to phone calls, doesn't it get challenging? I get it. That's where you are right now. Now that you know you want flexibility in your life, start taking the steps to think about how I can get there. Do you need to advance your education? Do you need to talk to your leadership about what you want to do differently in your job? It's time to make this a self-care priority. And if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. You're going to have to do something different to get something different. And so right now, because I do appreciate flexibility for my life, I actually have it. And I will never go back to a life where I don't have it. And flexibility allows me to be present for Nefertiti first. But it also helps me be available for my mother. It helps me to be available for Madison, Kiara, my husband. It helps me be available. I still get all the work done, but I've asked for flexibility. And that helps me to get the work done. So I'm asking you to get quiet and think about lifestyle self-care. How are you going to spend the 24 hours that God has given you as a parent? And again, I'm so glad you're still listening to the podcast, because you have stopped thinking about this. And you know what's happening? You're existing and you are not living. I said it. You are existing and you are not living. And you know what? Your child needs to see you live. Your children don't just need to see you existing. Got it? All right, I'm going to shut up because I don't like the way you're looking at me. So I'm going to go ahead. And somebody done put the podcast out their ear now because I made somebody mad. But that's what we're here for. We're going to get better at this together. You ready for the fifth area of self-care that I want us to think about? All right, this one is called creative. I want us to pay more attention to our creative self-care. So we just recently got back from a cruise. And, if you've ever been on a cruise, the TV that's in their stateroom, it doesn't have a lot of channels. But guess what? It has two of my most favorite channels, HGTV and the Food Network channel. And so I do this to myself every time I watch those two channels. After the cruise, I come home and I figure out where we're going to redesign, and I figure out how I'm going to become like a cook on one of those shows. And then I say, Nefertiti, if you don't go and fix something a little bit easier that don't need 16 different ingredients. But creative self-care is something that I long for. I actually don't feel like a day has been complete if I haven't thought about how to be creative. If that's not you, I don't want you to say, Nefertiti, what am I supposed to do? I'm not creative. Yes, you are. Do you know that you brought a whole human to this world? You are creative. You are figuring out ways to make things work as you become a new mom. This is your child's first year in preschool and you are figuring things out. Some of you are raising multiple children. You're creative. You are creative. What do I mean when I say creative? You make something out of something. You're making something out of something. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be an end result. Just the process is creative. You know, my husband is creative. He may not think so, but like I watch him wash the cars and like put the wax on them. He has this whole system for how he gets things done, right? And sometimes I say, I want to help him. I really don't want to help, but I just watch the way he does it. It's a creative expression. He is intentional about what he's doing, and the end result, the cars shine. And I think that's an opportunity or an example for us to think about creativity. You will feel better when you step into a moment where you just allow yourself to get there and just get away. Get away. And I want you to start thinking about creatively different. It doesn't mean you're watching the HGTV channel or you are, making some amazing dinner. Maybe you garden. Maybe you interior decorate. Maybe you coordinate your child's bedroom. Like all of those things can fall into the category of creative. But here is what I don't want to happen. You've been so busy trying to take care of everybody else, you don't even worry about this part of yourself anymore. You've almost given yourself permission to let this part of you go. No. You used to love to do, fill in the blank. You used to love to do that. Is it time to start thinking about it again? And I know you say, Nefertiti, I don't have a lot of time. Make some time, a little bit of time. Or at least after listening to today's podcast, start thinking about how you can squeeze in some moments. Maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but as soon as you can. Creative self-care is an area I would like for us to think about. All right, our last area of self-care, and then I'm going to let you go, all right? Thank you again for everything that I think we're going to be able to do within our community. I really appreciate you. Again, those of you who are here with me on YouTube or those who are listening via audio, I'm glad you're here. The last area of self-care that I saw in the research that I want to offer to our community is spiritual self-care. I heard myself say during the first podcast that I don't know how to parent without my spirituality, and that ain't nothing but the truth. Now, again, my grammar on this podcast is not always going to be proper, but I mean what I say all the time. I don't know how you parent without God in your life. I really don't know. Now, I don't want to say this. What I saw in the research says spiritual self-care. Your definition of spirituality is fine. I am offering the fact that I adhere to the principles of the Bible. That is what anchors my parenting, my parenting with my spouse. That's what works in this house. When I offer this area of spiritual self-care for you, you determine what that is. And whatever that is, make it an active part of your life. Once again, I'm offering this analogy of parenting is like a party. It has some wonderful elements of it. There are going to be such great guests at our party, but you and I are going to have to plan for this event. Now, the party for some of us has already started. My party's been going on for 8 years. It's not over. Again, spiritual self-care means many different things to many different people that are going to listen to me. One of the things I find as a constant in the self-care, thinking about self-care and spiritual self-care, it's what gives us our purpose. And so whatever is giving you purpose in the morning to get up and keep going, I want you to spend more time in that area. And if you're listening to me today and you say, Nefertiti, that's where I feel I fall sometimes. I really don't know what my purpose is beyond my parenting. Well, listen, having parenting as a purpose is a great place to start. And now it's just time to get quiet and think a little bit more about what you want. And as you grow in your area of spiritual self-care, you'll find yourself more and more and more. But you have to make time for it. You have to make time for it. All right. It's been a wonderful conversation. Are you ready to go over the 6 areas of self-care? So say them with me. Physical, mental and emotional, social and community, lifestyle, creative, and spiritual. Good job, class. I went out of my parent podcast mode back into teacher mode. I'm going to do that a lot. I'm so glad that we could do this together. Congratulations. You've gotten through episode number 2 of the Geriatric Mom podcast. I am your geriatric mama, Nefertiti. Please, if you learned something today, don't keep this to yourself. I can't wait to see you in our next episode. Thank you. Remember, it takes a healthy village to raise healthy children. See you next time. Thank you so much for joining me on the Geriatric Mom podcast. Listen, I want to know where and what you are going to make as a priority for your self-care. Are you going to work on creative? Are you going to work on spiritual? Are you going to work on physical? What are you going to do? Drop me an email and let me know. So I'm receiving all emails at contact@sheknowswhatshe'sdoing.com. Yes, that's my email address. So go ahead, send me a message and I will read everything that comes my way. So again, thank you. Send me a message. Let me know where you're going to focus. Talk to you soon.